Cheerio everybody, and welcome to the Gentleman Voice. It's time for another book review, so let's get right to it.
The Gentleman Voice. Critical analysis and reviews for books and movies. Tonight's feature presentation.
Adversarius. It's really an awesome name. It's a great name for a book, especially a fantasy novel. And it's got that little Latin flair to it with the Adversarius. It's really, really awesome. As you can see, I don't really have a copy of it with me because I read it on my computer. It was an ebook sent to me by the author to review, so thank you, Mel. Thank you very much. That said, I really do not like ebooks, so I'd rather read a paperback or a hardback personally. But if it's a free book to read, to review, I will take however you want to send it. Let's talk a little bit about what this book is. This is a book that was published by Mel through Hellfire Publishing, and I believe it's more of a self-publishing kind of arrangement. I'm not entirely certain. Now, I've got some opinions about self-publishing, and that's in two different forms, because I am both a reader and a writer. As a writer, I'm thinking, hey, it's great because I can actually get my work out and everyone will be able to read it. The bad is because, as a reader, not everybody necessarily should write. Mel's not one of those people, I'm just saying. So Adversarius, there are good points and bad points. First good point is it's fantasy. And it's pretty good fantasy. It's also not the kind of fantasy that you normally would expect. For the simple reason that instead of being all climatic fights and battles and magic everywhere, it's more of a political strategy game, like a civilization game. However, I will also point out that because of that, it's a little bit exciting, and then it goes into a steady journey of nothing really happening, slight character building, and that's about it. I read it all the way through, and when I got to the end I was like, huh, that's it? I felt like there should have been more at the end than there really was, and I was a little bit disappointed by that. However, it is going to be a trilogy, I believe it was, so at least there will be more. But the ending was still really abrupt in how it just ended. Didn't seem to be a real resolution of anything, and I know that as a trilogy it's going to continue, but I think that it needed to have a little bit more than it did, to be a little bit more satisfying for the reader. That said, it is still a good novel. I enjoyed it, but there are things that need to be talked about. So the novel opens with Keita, and Keita is the princess of a nation that is at almost constant stalemate war with another nation ruled by an evil guy named Liendrin. So in the battle, Keita falls off the ship after getting wounded and hits her head, and she gets amnesia. She gets picked up by Sorcha, who is a pirate, spelled P-Y-R-A-T-E, which was a very interesting way of spelling it, and it made sense. From there, Sorcha takes her to a healing place where she gets dropped off so that she can recover from her wounds, even though her amnesia does not heal up right away, which is good. I enjoyed how the amnesia bit was actually really well done. It was spread out through the entire novel, and it's really well done. It's believable, where as soon as she sees something she recognizes, there's instant pain. If she hears voices that sound familiar, it's instant pain. If she hears names of people or names of places that she knows, it's instant pain. Because her mind is trying to remember, she's trying to remember, and her mind's trying to suppress it. So that was well done. And that's one of the major conflicts in the entire novel, is the fact that she has this amnesia, and she needs to not have the amnesia, but whenever something happens that would possibly knock her out of having amnesia, it brings excruciating pain to her. So the people who are at the healing place when she arrives there, they decide that they want to guide her back to her home place, so that way she can become the ruler and guide the people to victory against Liendrin, who is leading his armies to essentially take them over. And we got a lot of characters there, and in all truth, I didn't really get too much of a connection to them because I didn't quite get why a lot of them were involved in this or why they really cared. Don't get me wrong, they are good characters, it's just I don't think that they were fully developed. But One thing I will say is that the main character, who is essentially the Gandalf of the group, is Black Rose, who, even though every time he's mentioned he's called Rose, he is a man. A little bit jarring, but after a while you get used to that. He's awesome because he's got these assassin powers, and he's amazing as an assassin, except for the fact that he falls for another assassin named Night Shadow, and she... I mean, we really don't get to see her in action too much at all. And that's really a shame, because with assassins you have a chance to actually show some really good action that way. And I think that was an opportunity that was really missed. And I hope it comes into play in the next books. And that's the basic gist of the story, but it was a really good premise. I loved the premise, it was really strong. However, there are several things that do distract me in this reading. Before I go into those, let me also say that I took a novel writing class at my college for 6 semesters. So I learned about how to write well and everything like that. But at the same time, it made it so that I could not read certain things without cringing all the time. Thank you very much, Jim. For example, at the very beginning, it starts out with that action scene where Kata gets knocked off the boat. Problem with that is the way it is written. It is massive blocks of text, and massive blocks of text are really, really annoying to read. And not even just in an action scene. In an action scene, you want small paragraphs, you want quick, clipped sentences, you want to take out any unnecessary detail. But in this case, we have massive paragraphs and lots of detail, and it did not really work. It sort of made me concerned when I first started reading, because I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to enjoy this. But I let it go, I just kept going. At the same time, there's something else that was really, really bugging me, and it was mostly about her dialogue tags. Dialogue tags, for those who do not know the jargony term, it's the segment of the text that explains how a certain piece of dialogue was said, or what the action was during, before, and after the dialogue was said. And there are 2 types. There's speech and there's action. Speech tags refer to how it's said, like said, asked, replied, anything along those lines. An action tag is something that you do, such as he laughed, because you can't laugh dialogue. I mean, if you tried that, that would be ridiculous. That would be... You can't do it. And then there were other things like shrugged, and I mean, if you're shrugging dialogue, that's just going to look really awkward. The only way that would work is if it was Morse code. And the same goes for smiling, because if you smile dialogue, it'd be like... Unfortunately, that is a lot of what the tags are in this novel. And I'm not doing any self-promotion here, but if I was the editor looking at it, and I am a freelance editor, I would have definitely said that these tags need to be changed because of the fact that they are not dialogue tags. If you want to know more about that, check out my blog. It has a description about why tags are important. Would a lot of these same issues really bug anybody else besides me? Maybe not. I asked one of my friends about it. She said that it was really bugging her too. But our voices are just 2 drops in an ocean of voices. So take that with a grain of salt. So overall, that was really distracting. And some of the character relationships were a little bit not quite fully developed. And a lot of them, I don't know why they were really on this mission. So it was a little bit more difficult to get through at times, but it was still enjoyable. So how would I rate it? I want to give it a 4-star, but in all truth, I don't think I can stay true to what I was just saying if I gave it 4 stars. So I'm going to have to say that I would give it 3.5. Which, if you think about that mathematically, that would round up to 4. So if you want to think about it that way, think about it that way. Overall, Adversarius was a fun read. I enjoyed it. It was not necessarily the best written, but would I consider buying the trilogy? I would consider it. Would I necessarily read it over and over again? And don't get me wrong, Mel, I am really behind you. I support your work. I just do think that there's a little bit more work to be done before sending it in for publication. That's my personal opinion. But as a read, it was a good read. So thank you for watching. Cheerio and farewell.